Welcome to Steven Frain Sister. This is episode 4, and we are going to talk about surprising suicide myths. My name is Pamella Jean.
And I'm Samantha Bennington.
So for our listeners out there, most of these questions about suicide that I'm going to share with Samantha, most of this research came from the University of Notre Dame, unless I say differently. So we have several, and we'll just start and see what happens.
For all the listeners out there, I have no idea what she's about to ask me. So if I thought I was put on the spot, I definitely am.
Well, I just think it's interesting for people to understand statistics, because I think, you know, what's funny with the last 2 podcasts that we have done on stigmas is that's where the stigmas come from. People think certain things about suicide, and they might not be true, or they might have known that, and they might learn new information. And sometimes just having all the facts and the information helps you have a plan, have a guide. We're always talking about having a plan and having a guide. And one of the things that I do like that we're focusing on is the survivors, because what's interesting is my roommate, who's an attorney, emailed me the other day that they have a child that's looking for a group for kids. I can't find anything.
Well, we can create one. I have a whole bunch of kids, unfortunately, that are survivors.
Yeah, but I thought that what's interesting is there's a lot of stuff for prevention. There's a lot of stuff for help in that way. Mm-hmm. But as far as people like us, and there's tons of people like us, there's not as much support. And I think that is really important. So it made me realize, I was looking and looking and looking, and I finally found one that kind of might be close in Glendale, so I had sent that on for them to, but it didn't even say youth group. I'm just saying you'd have to call and see if they allow kids in them, because it might just be for adults. There really is a need for more survivors of suicide loss. All right, so leading up to my first question, do you think talking about suicide efforts and successes further causes people to act?
That's like a two-sided question right there, because on one hand, I think if it's knowledgeable or the source is creditable, did I say that?
You did, credible.
Thank you. I'm a little tired. No, I feel that sometimes it's actually very helpful, depending on how the person receives it, right? Now, I also love TV shows like 13 Reasons Why. I thought it was very interesting. It was a different perspective. It was coming from a children's perspective, but I also think it glamorifies it. It makes it look like, ooh, that's a whole TV show. Now it's on TV. And then if I do it this way, or if I write letters, or if I share, it could. So I think that's a double sword. I think it can help, and I think it can be harmful.
It says that actually talking about it makes it more out in the open, and it makes people take it more seriously. People are really afraid to talk about it. The basic thing that it said back was raising the question of suicide without shock or disapproval shows that you are taking the person seriously and responding to their pain. And I really like that. You're responding to their pain. You're not just saying, oh, it's because when you don't talk about things, that's when the person's dealing it by themselves, and they've got the stigma, oh, they don't want to talk about this.
It's all internal. They're internalizing everything and don't really know what to say or where to go.
Yeah. So, and I think that is a thing. Like, they're thinking, oh, well, if we talk about how somebody killed themselves, are 5 other people going to do it that way? Not necessarily. That's what the research is saying. Actually, people are going to understand that the aftermath of what happens, because we're not only going to talk about how they did it, we're also going to talk about what happened afterwards. So I think that's a big part of it. So
I know I'm very uncomfortable even doing the podcast sometimes and talking about it. It's very hard.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy.
This is not a great subject, but it's so important. But it's really difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult.
I squirm. I'm squirming, and I'm sitting across from one of my best friends that I've known for decades, and it's squirmy. It's a very difficult subject.
It's weird. I don't know why I get this, but I get somersaults in my stomach at times. I get kind of that, I don't want to say butterfly because it's not really a butterfly, but it's like that, it's kind of stress thing that happens when you're talking about something. And you're
right.
like, so I get the stress, so appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
Do you think men or women are more susceptible to suicide?
No, I think it doesn't discriminate. However, I think from my research, men are more successful at succeeding at what they're trying to do, and they're actually more violent about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think women are more afraid of the pain and think they can just take a whole bunch of pills most of the time and fall asleep, and that's it. But a lot of times they survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have broken down organs and a lot more problems. And they're even more unhappy than they were in the first place. And sometimes they go through a lot of anger. It's why did they survive?
Mm-hmm.
And then they now become in our shoes as the victim that also is surviving. It's actually a really difficult thing for women. But do I think anyone's exempt? No, I think no.
So the question we had was, do you think men or women are more susceptible to suicide? So I think this is really interesting because it's yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
Males make up 79% of all suicides, but you were correct because they're more successful. Women are, 3 to 4 times likely to try.
Wow.
I mean, that's a huge number. And this is actually according to the Department of Psychiatry at University of Ottawa is where I got this information. And some of these things I will link down in the podcast as I did.
It's got to be hormonal, too. I mean, think about it. Women and hormones. We're off balance every month.
True.
And people always tell us we're crazy.
Oh, men love to tell us we're crazy.
Yes.
They just love, she's just crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that
that's a huge
It's a huge
percentage.
number.
Yeah.
But they said that the reason, too, is that males don't seek help. Women...
They don't ask for direction, let alone seek help.
No, but this is the thing.
And
back to the stigma.
And we don't hate men. We love men.
We love men.
We love you guys.
No, but that's the thing is that there is a stigma that they need to be strong. They can't show weakness. They make a decision to do this, and they do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where women, it's like, we're allowed to change our mind. Or, and actually,
thank God.
We'll find out, I think there's one farther down that talks about how it's really more a cry for help, even when the men do it. Are there more suicides than homicides?
I'm supposed to know that question?
No, I'm just asking. Do you think there are more suicides than homicides?
That's a really tough question. I have zero idea, but I'm going to go with probably more suicides.
In the U.S., there are two times as many suicides as homicides.
That's horrific. That's how low human beings think of themselves.
It's the third leading cause of death for 15 to 24-year-olds and the second leading cause of death for 24 to 35-year-olds.
What are people thinking?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to do a little bit more research on that to see what that... But that shocked me. I was very shocked.
Well, I was actually really guessing. I wasn't quite sure because I just think like...
Well, it makes sense because why would they ask this question?
Right.
It
makes
it makes sense. But I didn't, 2 times. I mean, double. I thought maybe more. I didn't think it would be like double.
Double, yeah.
So that's what it says. And the second.
Well, that means that we're failing as a human race to help each other. Where people are so in their own movies, in their own heads, they're just not being aware of, or in their present moment of what's around them and how to interact with human beings of our own nature.
Mm-hmm.
We interact with computers more. So it's very, very sad. That's
the
disconnect. That shows the disconnect.
Yeah.
The disconnect is really insanely real. Disturbingly real.
Yeah. And somehow with I think with the pressures that we all put on each other, we're not getting happier. You know what I mean? We have far too many pressures and far too many things that we're supposed to deliver or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, why are so many of us so miserable? I mean, there's no reason that you would do that if you weren't just completely miserable.
Because people aren't doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
They're not living the way they want to live. They're not creating the life they want to create. They're actually more worried about what others think, keeping up with the Jones, those type of things. And so they're not living their authentic selves. And when you're not true to your own nature, what makes your soul happy, you spiral. So if you're a type of person that likes to be outdoors and you're not hiking and you're not venturing, that's going to bring your soul down.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
If you're more an introvert where you would rather spend time at a science lab or, an astronomy center or something that is indoors and where that's your comfort zone, and you're being forced to go outdoors, you're definitely not living your authentic self. So when you're not living your authentic self and you're doing everything that others expect you to do, want you to do, society says you should do, then where do you go from there mentally? You just keep spiraling. And that is, and today we talked a lot about anxiety. I mean, that word alone is a stepping stone and a building point for people to get to this darkest place. It always stems from something. And we're missing parents or friends or family or doctors or whomever's, interacting with, people who are suffering with this disease of wanting to take your own life. It's not normal. So we're missing the signs. We're failing because we're not interacting properly. We need to reconnect.
Well, I just find it very fascinating that it's the second leading cause of 24 to 35-year-olds. So you would think this would be kind of like the prime of your, you've graduated college and you're on your own, or going into a lot of people get married and have children like right in that 30-year mark. So I was very shocked by it being the second leading cause in that age range.
Well, tonight you and I went to that seminar, and it was an amazing seminar based on anxiety and the pressure. So really what I took away from the seminar, which goes into play with what we're speaking about, is it's the millennials, or she used a different term for the children these days. They're just so... they only interact with technology. They're not interacting, and they don't have the skills and the ability. And we've touched base on that in prior podcasts. So if that's such a disconnect, it used to be, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the studies used to say younger and more high school students because they weren't equipped to deal with things. And now it's a little older, but I think our generations, everybody's doing things. They're not growing up as fast as us latchkey or, generations where we had to take care of ourselves. That was really a huge topic tonight of...
Yeah, being coddled a little bit too much.
Right, that they don't have, I call it the hustle, they don't have resilience.
Resilience was what the word she used.
Was resilience, and that's because there's such a disconnect. Our computers, our laptops, our video games, and that's the socializing of that generation.
Well, it's a safety thing. She was saying, making them feel uncomfortable. They're not resilient being uncomfortable. They don't have the tools on how to feel uncomfortable. We all hate feeling uncomfortable, but it's a very important part of growing up.
Very important. And that's the thing. It's okay to fall. It's okay to fail. It's okay to go to that party where you were invited by the host and you don't know anyone. That's the opportunity to push through your uncomfortableness and be secure with who you are and like who you are and feel good in your own skin and go and meet some new people and have that opportunity to make a real friend in real life and a real encounter, a real present moment. And I hope that anyone listening realizes that being alive and having that opportunity to live and and interact with human beings. It's such an honor. It's such an honor. It's like you and I sitting here talking. We're taking our time out. And all my closest friends and family know this. I say this all the time, and I'm sure I've said it before. And I'm going to be redundant because it really is an honor when people exchange energy. And so for you taking your time out with me right now and vice versa, it's a blessing. And for anyone that's listening, thank you for listening, because it's a blessing that you actually care enough to listen, whether it's for yourself or to help someone else, or to just be supportive with someone else, or get educated, anything. It's just an honor that people take their time out to do whatever they choose to do in their life. And we hope that you choose to do something healthy.
There's a group called Survivors of Suicide Loss, and it's I went to it, and it's very well done. It really changed me. It really helped me. The next one, it says, what economic level is most susceptible to suicide?
It's upper middle class, upper class. Entitled. Everybody has everything. Perfect life. The valedictorian, right? It was interesting. Captain of the football team. It was that type of person that was being affected by this the most. Maybe it's
for
the
anxiety,
pressure.
Yeah.
For anxiety. Maybe it's pressure.
They have a higher risk of anxiety and acting on that anxiety.
I have to get all A's.
Yeah.
When is good enough? Those were things that stuck in my head. That was very, very interesting.
It was interesting. And on here,
I could relate to it. I mean, that kind of hits home with our family.
Exactly. And actually on here it says that suicide tends not to discriminate. It is represented somewhat proportionally among all levels of society, especially middle to upper class. So it's like, it's interesting. You would think, like, the first thing I would think is it's lower income family. It's like, no, because maybe the lower income family is more connected.
They're more connected. They probably appreciate more, a little more grounded. Then you have the upper class that has everything and has to maintain it. That's pressure.
Well, perfectionism.
Yeah. Whether it's grades or what you're wearing or what you're driving or all those pressures, or who you're dating, or just any of those normal pressures that seem to get larger as you get older and you have to keep up more and more. The pressure is real.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
It's very telling. You know, my mother was a perfectionist. She still feels like a perfectionist. And just trying to keep up with the appearances, especially after, probably after having a child that committed suicide and feeling like a complete failure and just wanting to move forward. So, let's see, what else is on here? This is fascinating. I was really shocked by this number. Do you think that suicide affects our economy? Take a guess of how much.
It probably affects our economy in a positive fashion. Why would I think that? Why do I think that?
I don't know.
Because I'm emotionally spending more money. I'm like, oh my God, between being shuffled around and figuring things out, I feel like I've spent more money.
If you feel like you're spending more money, I mean, that's more of a negative, don't you think?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we're talking about?
Yeah, but I think you said positive.
Well, yeah, it's positive for the economy. Not positive for me.
Oh, got it. Okay.
It's definitely not positive for me. But it's interesting because even for healthcare, I'm spending more money on healthcare because I'm doubling up and I'm changing policies, and I'm thinking, oh, my house, and we got to change this, and you want to change the energy, and you need, and you overcompensate when there's children involved because now you're both parents, and this creates a change that nobody's prepared for. So it could spiral you out.
That's very true. It does create change that no one is prepared for.
So it spirals you out in a way where you're forced without any warning. Like, it's not like cancer and it's not like leukemia and it's not like, even alcoholism is something that you can, watch happen over, or drug abuse. You can know what that person's going through, and all these things can be reversible too. You have those opportunities with the suicide. It's a drastic change. So I would say for the economy, it actually increases, economically speaking, from my perspective of what I've seen. And I could be totally wrong from the looks of your face.
No, I mean, you're not totally wrong, but this is what's interesting about it is, according to Suicide Prevention Resource Center, it costs, and I think the latest numbers also came from American Prevention of Suicide. It says, in fact, in 2015, suicide and self-injury cost the U.S. $69 billion. I was shocked.
Oh, you're talking government.
By that number.
From
No.
hospitals or no?
It's more of like people can't go to work. So
Right.
it's like having to stop work, like you're saying. All of a sudden there's a crisis,
Right.
and they
You're
can't
spending
function.
more money in areas
They can't function.
that,
Yeah, they can't function. So I was really shocked by that number. I didn't even think about that it was affecting our economy in such a major fashion. But when you have that life change and someone suddenly passes, it's like, no, you're not going to work the next day. You're probably not going to work for the next 3 weeks. And like we had talked about before, how suicide directly affects a minimum of 6 people.
Right. Minimum.
Yeah. So what if you worked with the person? You know what I mean? So
That's an insane amount
it's
of money.
an insane amount of money. It says more than 97% of this cost was due to lost productivity.
Wow.
That's a huge number. The remaining 3% were costs associated with medical treatment.
What about the average person who's fighting depression and has not had a suicide? Are we having loss there?
You know what? That's a great question. That's a great question.
I would assume so.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Because I mean, there's people who get so depressed they can't even get out of bed.
Well, that's probably a loss in productivity.
Right.
It's like you're not going to be able to be productive or to function.
So, Pamela, I really wanted to read this poem that was sent to me by a really dear girlfriend, and it hit home. And I think that the listeners, it may hit home for them as well. So it's called Celestial Harmony. And can I read it? Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't wait to hear it. Sounds cool. Like the name.
Isn't it a beautiful name?
Mm-hmm.
Celestial Harmony. And this is by Ellie Michelle. Honor your phases as you would the moon. You never look up and think, you should be this or that. You honor her wanting, how she faces darkness and walks through her own shadow. You honor her waxing, how she grows and expands, shining her light as bright as possible. You never think she should stay dark for the sun's comfort. You honor her fullness and allow her to be wild. When she wants again, she never fears that she will return to the light. She honors all sides of herself equally, knowing that there is a time for shadow and there is a time for light. All things in nature embody this balance.
Wow, that's not only beautiful, but very powerful.
That's why I wanted to read it, because we have to remind ourselves that for our loved ones and for ourselves that it's okay. We are going to be dark. We are going to grieve. We are going to do everything in our own time, and we have to accept everybody and exactly the way they are. We have to remind ourselves to have patience. We have to remind ourselves how beautiful each and every person is.
Mm-hmm.
And that poem, when it got sent to me, I teared up, and it was so beautiful. And I love Mother Nature, and I love the moon, and I'm so hippity-dippity, so it really spoke to me, and I hope... I mean...
You're so funny.
I'm a punk rock hippie, so I call myself a pippy. But, yeah, but it's just...
A hippie? I haven't heard that. That's cool.
It's a punk rock hippie.
Oh,
I'm a
okay,
hippie.
got it.
But I just
It
think
can't be
that...
a pink hippie?
Everything with you is pink. But I just think that I'd really like to add some creativeness to our podcast. I'd like to add, since we've both been driven by the arts, whether it's the beauty business, the music business,
Fashion.
Marketing, fashion, anything. Yeah. We're very creative, you and I, and together I think that somehow poems can reach other people's lives as well. It touched mine. So I thought it was only fair and the right thing to do is if something feels so good to you, you can't just hone it and harvest it for yourself. You have to share it for the whole entire world, because if it helped me, it might help someone else. So
that's awesome. It's really beautiful.
Thanks.